What's good, everybody? It's your boy Todd Smith here, yet once again alongside my tag team partner Dale Clifford out there in Fernley, Nevada for yet another episode of the No Gimmicks podcast. This week, we're going to bring to you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Raw brand exclusive pay-per-view Clash of Champions. So let's start off here, Dale, with the Universal title match between Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins. So first, the good. I felt that the good was the actual match itself, pretty much up until the involvement of Chris Jericho before he inserted himself into the match. What do you feel about the bad of this match, Dale?
The bad from the Universal title match between Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, I have to say, was Chris Jericho getting involved in this thing. I was hoping that this thing was just going to be one-on-one. Yeah. We'd get Owens and Seth Rollins. But to me, it feels like WWE has to have some reason to set up the specialty matches. Like, I know their next pay-per-view is Hell in a Cell, so we have to have outside involvement to force the Cell to be involved. To me, that just seems so silly when we know the pay-per-view is coming. So to me, that was the bad.
Yeah, that was the bad. And the other thing is, too, I'm seeing, that we have the alignment between Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. I understand your explanation, but I'm thinking at some point those two are going to wind up turning on each other as well. I think the ugly of that match was definitely that top rope gutbuster that Kevin Owens delivered to Seth Rollins. That just looked painful. Okay, that definitely was an ugly moment of that match there. Let's move on to the U.S. title match between Rusev and Roman Reigns. So, in my opinion, the good of that match was Roman Reigns came out on top. He's the new U.S. champion. And basically, the only good because of that is the fact that that Rusev is no longer the U.S. champion. So that's pretty much the only thing good that I could really see that came out of that match. Dale, how do you feel about the bad of this match here?
My bad kind of for this, as I was going along, I just thought that Rusev and Lana were a poor man's version of Miz and Maurice.
Okay, I can kind of see where you're going with that.
To clarify that out a little bit more, it's like Lana's attempts to save Rusev's championship didn't succeed, like Maurice's continued to succeed over and over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah, very, very true. Yeah, it's the polar opposite. The ugly of that match, I would have to say, is that match was just too damn long, okay? I was sitting up there in my chair snoring. I mean, like, calling the odds. All right, I think my neighbor next door probably heard the wall vibrating from me snoring so loud. And I just kind of felt like I did not miss anything in that match. Now, let's get to the ugly. You had some thoughts about the length of the match. Is that correct, Dale?
Yeah, another part of the ugly was obviously you had pointed out that the match was too long. I also thought that the ugly was like with this match just being too long is the fact that we're likely going to see a rematch between the two at Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. So we get to see more of this boringness. Moving on to the women's title match, we had a triple threat match featuring Charlotte, Sasha Banks, and Bayley. And Charlotte wound up retaining her title in this match here. The good, one of the bright spots that I could see was the beautiful moonsault. I think Michael Cole pointed out there was a double moonsault. That is not correct. It is not a double moonsault. It's just she landed the moonsault onto both of her opponents, and that had very good form. What do you think about the bad of this one, Dale?
You know what? I thought kind of the bad was that Charlotte retained. I was kind of hoping that maybe we might get Bayley or Sasha might get it back. But then again, if we flip-flop the women's title so quickly after Charlotte got it back from Sasha, then it seems like we're in the trend of flip-flopping. Mm-hmm. But either way, I kind of was hoping that we were going to be moving in a different direction from as Charlotte is champion, but here we are.
Yeah, and which brings us to the ugly. I think the actual ugly was the finish itself. There was possibly a blown finish there because it kind of seemed like Sasha Banks was just kind of leaning up against the ropes, and it seemed like that should have been when Dana Brooke should have grabbed her or something like that. They kind of retained her and made sure that she didn't actually get off of the ropes while there was a little, interaction going on between Charlotte and Bayley. And that big boot, that was kind of an ugly finish. Not exactly the finish that I thought that we would see in a women's triple threat match. So yeah, that's our thoughts on that one there. So let's move along to Sami Zayn, who had a grudge match up against Y2J. I was about to say Y2K. Y2J Chris Jericho. The good in that one, Zayn actually delivered that sick-looking turnbuckle DDT where he dives through the turnbuckle and actually delivers the DDT onto to Chris Jericho. To my knowledge, I think you had said this as well, Dale. Correct me if I'm wrong. That was the first time that he actually delivered that on the main roster, because the last time we saw him do it was in NXT, correct?
That's the first time I can remember it being on the main roster, because I was trying to think when I would texted you about that. The last time I remember him seeing it was when he attempted it against Nakamura at NXT Dallas and failed. So
same thing I thought. So the bad is what? What's the bad coming out of this match here, Dale?
We both kind of thought that the bad was that Sami Zayn came up on the short end of the stick. I know my wife disagrees. She was rooting for Chris Jericho. She continues to hate on Sami Zayn.
April, not the same fan.
I just kind of thought that Sami Zayn could use a victory over Chris Jericho to boost him and hopefully churn the opinion of my wife's favor that Zayn just kind of doesn't seem like he fits on the main roster yet. But so hopefully it will come down the line. But that's kind of, I think, our bad was him ultimately losing this match.
Yeah, they got to give my man Sami Zayn some wins there. And I'm going to cover the ugly because I'm always comparing people and saying what they look like. Chris Jericho looked absolutely ridiculous, okay? The ring gear and the common look that he's got going on right now where he's constantly being teased and ribbed and, poked fun at by some of the other talent on the roster, he does kind of look like a knockoff of John Bon Jovi. Jericho looked like a cross between John Bon Jovi and a flamingo out there tonight with that kind of pinkish, purplish colored ring gear that he was wearing. So I think that was the worst part of it. The ugly was definitely Jericho's look.
When you said flamingo, I thought you mistyped Fandango.
Oh no, I didn't mistype Fandango. I meant an actual flamingo, like the bird that stands up on one leg, the pink colored bird that lives down there down in Florida. Yeah.
Alrighty, but yeah, you clarified it right there when you obviously knew that you were talking about a flamingo. I thought you were trying to say Fandango at first.
That's funny though. That's funny that you thought that. So talking about things that actually were kind of ugly, let's talk about the best of 7 series between Cesaro and Sheamus. This match was an absolute slugfest. These guys took it to one another, pushed it to the limit. The good in this one was the actual match itself. Hell of a match between these two. I mean, these guys came at each other with all kinds of stuff. I even saw Cesaro do a 619, which was just absolutely nuts, for a guy that big to be that athletic and whatnot. Also, just some really snug and like hard-hitting action in this. Now, let's talk about the bad. What about this did you not like, Dale?
I did not like the ending. Saw it coming when they took forever on the outside, and then obviously Cesaro clotheslined Sheamus over the top, and then the match ended up in a draw as they were both deemed unable to continue by the referee. So I just thought that that was unfortunate that we had a best of 7 and we didn't actually get a winner.
Right.
But obviously this series has delivered in several of those best of 7 matches with actually solid matches. Mm-hmm. So I think why not actually get an 8th match?
Yeah, which we'll most likely get to see at Hell in a Cell, right? I'm assuming. Yeah. So then there's the ugly, okay? Now it's kind of funny because Lita of all people, who actually had a very scary instance in her career, she was the one who pointed this out, like when they went to the panel. That diving headfirst plancha that Cesaro executed when he ran and jumped between the ropes and he dove onto Sheamus, that was not only ugly, that was downright frightening, because I thought that guy was going to land right on his head, out there on the surface on the floor, and I thought he might have possibly had a good chance of breaking his neck. Thankfully, he actually made contact with his head to Sheamus's upper torso, and then he wound up landing softly on his head on the outside. But yeah, that was a bit scary. Am I not right there, Dale?
Absolutely. When I first saw that, I was like, "Oh man, here down goes Cesaro to some type of neck injury now." But definitely, it looks like he came out okay. Although I don't know if he was just selling a shoulder injury, or I think he was probably just selling a shoulder injury from that that head first dive at the end of the match. So I think that we're all good there as we go forward to what is likely an 8th match between these two.
Hey, thankfully they don't call him the dude the Swiss Superman for nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that dude is got a great physique, I think, to be able to come out of that move the way he did.
Made of steel, man. So we're gonna discuss the cruiserweight title match here between newcomer the Filipino Flash, I believe they're referring to him as, T.J. Perkins, up against Brian Kendrick. So this was for the new cruiserweight title that WWE has brought in, and it's a nice looking title as well. T.J. Perkins, TJP for short, retained the title. The good that I saw that match, he kind of came at with Brian Kendrick with a Hurricane Rana that he delivered from off the top rope, where he actually grabbed him and took him down to the floor. It's kind of similar with what Grand Metall did to him during the Cruiserweight Classic final. Am I not correct there, Dale?
Yeah, it looked pretty similar to that, which was a pretty outstanding move then and again tonight as well.
Yeah. So there was some bad about this. It was a pretty even contest between these two, but there was a move that Brian Kendrick executes, what he used to refer to it as the bully choke. For whatever reason, they're now referring to the captain's hook.
Yeah, I noticed that they kind of, when he debuted in that Fatal 4-Way last week, they weren't referring to it as the bully choke, but I couldn't quite catch what they had called it, and tonight I heard the reference to the captain's hook, which I kind of just, so to me this was the bad to call it the bully choke all the way through the CWC, and then all of a sudden he gets to Raw and we're going to change the name of the thing. Why not just start off with it in the CWC by the name you want to use in the main roster?
And why the captain's hook? That's the question I'm scratching my head literally and asking myself, is he supposed to be a pirate? Is he a fan of Captain Crunch cereal? What's the basis behind this? I'm with you on this one. Yeah, I don't quite get that. So let's talk about the ugly, okay? Now, it seems like things involving people's heads seem to be the common theme, for the ugly for tonight, just like with the Cesaro, the head first dive to the ropes. Was that not an ugly headbutt that he delivered to Kendrick after the post-match embrace, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It looked pretty good. I think it was just a solid sell job by all involved. But yeah, I could definitely see it ugly. Just because it probably looked like a pretty good snug headbutt. So you get a good snug headbutt, that's kind of when you can get into the ugly when we're talking professional wrestling.
Yes, indeed. Moving on here, let's talk about the tag title match. So we had the tag team title match between the New Day and Anderson and Gallows. New Day, they've retained the titles in this match here, and we were trying to figure out what exactly was the good in this match. Dale, can you think of anything good to come out of these this match between these four?
You know what? Typically, when you look at the first match on the card, it's never one that you kind of forget. But I think the good from this one will be the fact that it was the first match and we had 6 matches to replace it on the card.
They got this out of the way early. I think that was about the only good to come out of this. You guys know how I feel. Those of you who listen to this program, I'm not a fan of the New Day. And I absolutely hate what they're doing with Anderson and Gallows. So basically, our good for this was the fact that it was first on the card. The bad was the fact that New Day won and they retained the titles. And then what was the ugly, Dale?
Me and you both agreed that we do not like what they're doing with Anderson and Gallows in WWE They're a physical force that kind of dominated as a part of the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they are doing none of that as Anderson and Gallows in WWE.
No, I'm absolutely just disgusted with what they have done with these guys. They have been castrated. They went from being a part of one of the most dominant stables literally in all of professional wrestling to where now they are just a laughingstock. They're two Mr. Clean wannabes, basically. You know, they're doing these goofy little angles and these goofy little promos with the New Day and stuff, you know, talking about, you know, like they're doctors, and then they're sending people to the retirement home and all that stuff. It's just stupid. I'm hoping that when Finn Balor returns after his injury, after he's done recovering, that he comes back as a heel and that they take these guys off screen for a while and they bring them back as mean, nasty, tough heels, and that they finally formed this Balor Club that we heard so much about. So basically, that's our feelings on the WWE Clash of the Champions Raw brand exclusive pay-per-view. Overall, I thought the show was underwhelming. Like I said, I actually went into Backlash with some very low expectations, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. I actually enjoyed that show. Dale, I want your take on this. On the no gimmick scale from 1 to 5, what do you think? What do you give this show here?
2.
A 2? That's about where I'm at. I said about 2.5. That's about all I can give this one.
What I was gonna say is, like, I just thought the crowd definitely noticed the crowd shift between the big arena for the cruiserweight as compared to that of Full Sail Arena. You definitely didn't feel like the crowd was into that match. Cesaro, Sheamus, the ending. I also picked up on some internet traffic for the Universal title match where it just kind of seemed like the crowd really wasn't into that match because they just didn't know which way to go.
Yeah, exactly, you know.
Because you got the so-called Smark fans that love Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins because we both know where they came from. And then the casual fan, they're both kind of heelish characters, so you don't really know who to choose for. So those are kind of my takeaways as to why Clash of Champions kind of was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I think it was a dud, in all honesty. You know, they've got a chance to redeem themselves. We got the No Mercy for the SmackDown brand pay-per-view coming up here not too long from a couple weeks from now, I believe. And then we got Hell in the Cell coming up in the month of October. You know, possibly that will be a little bit better. You know, possibly some good matches coming out of that. But yeah, this is what we do, folks. Dale and I, we can sit here and talk about wrestling all evening long, but unfortunately we can't, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Please subscribe to us on our official YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at the No Gimmicks PC. Also, please feel free to share the links with other wrestling fans that you might possibly know, and leave us some feedback. If you really enjoyed the program, go on to our official YouTube channel and leave some comments. Like or dislike if you didn't enjoy the show. But anyway, we want to hear from you. So until next time, this is your boy Todd Smith out here in Bristol, Connecticut. And for my tag team partner Dale Clifford out there in Fernley, Nevada. Until next time around, y'all take care.